Alrighty, it does appear to be 4:30. Today is June 7th, year 2022. We are the Carmel-by-the-Sea City Council. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Barron.
Here.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Here.
Councilmember Tice.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Here.
And Mayor Potter.
Here.
All are present.
All right, Jeff, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. After me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jeff.
De nada.
Alrighty. Brings us to our first order of business, which is public appearance. There's an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. 3-minute limitation on the testimony. If you'd state your name for the record, I'd appreciate it. Is there anybody in the room wishing to speak? I don't see anybody. Is there anybody in Zoom world wishing to speak tonight?
Mayor Potter,
Yes.
Michael McWalter, Scenic Road, 2 north of 11th. How are you?
Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I wanted to finish my remarks from yesterday, and I apologize that I went over my 3 minutes. I was concluding yesterday with the following. I'm asking the City Council to rescind the Planning Department Verizon approval for a 12-foot antenna smokestack on the Dowd Arcade. Start the process over. Or, like the warning label on the side of a cigarette pack, quote, smoking may be hazardous to your health, we will have, quote, cell towers radiation may be hazardous to your health signs posted all over our central commercial district. Second thing is last year on August the 16th, 2021, in an historic decision, the U.S. Court of Appeals ordered the Federal Communications Commission to explain why it ignored scientific evidence showing harm from wireless radiation. Court found that the FCC ignored numerous organizations, scientists, and medical doctors, called on them to update limits. The court found that the Federal Communications Commission failed to address these issues: impacts of long-term wireless exposure, impacts to children, testimony of people injured by wireless radiation, impacts to wildlife and the environment, impacts to the developing brain and reproduction. The second thing I want to read into the record is this year, April the 6th, Pittsfield, Massachusetts Board of Health voted to send a cease and desist order to shut down a Verizon cell tower. Board of Health found, through an exhaustive analysis of the science and medical information in the record it compiled, including testimony from renowned independent scientists and medical doctors, individual diagnoses of the affected residents, plus testimony by the residents themselves, found, quote, convincing evidence that pulsed and modulated radio frequency radiation is bioactive and affects all living things over the long term. The order also noted cell tower rendered the historic Shacktown section of Pittsfield unfit for human habitation because the continued exposure causes them severe pain, unable to function, and endangers and materially impairs their health and safety. The evidence clearly demonstrates to this Board of Health that specific Shacktown residents in the vicinity of the facility have suffered and are suffering injuries and illnesses directly caused by the pulsed and modulated radio frequency radiation emitted by the facility in issue. And for so long as the facility is in operation, it will continue to.
Once again, you've overused your allocation. I'm sorry.
I'll work on that, Mayor. Thank you.
You're getting better. You're getting better. I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight?
Thank you, Mayor.
No problem. Anybody else in Zoom world wishing to speak? All right, seeing no one, I'll bring it back then for the council. We've got extraordinary business. Jeff, you have a proclamation you want to present?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. For the 4th year in a row, I'm happy to make a few brief remarks and read the the proclamation of the City Council of the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea recognizing June 2022 as LGBTQ Pride Month. It gives me great pleasure to do this, and I was thinking back as I was trying to compose my remarks through the week, and I was reading back through the remarks that I've made over the course of the past 3 years, and today I'd like to just keep my remarks short and say thank you on behalf of me and Kevin, and on behalf of a lot of the other, I assume most or all of the other LGBTQ residents in town for the welcome that we have received and the lack of that. I know that we are privileged. We are all very privileged to live here, and aware of what is going on in many areas outside of our little community. But thank you very much. And I will read this proclamation. Whereas many cities across the United States recognize June as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, as June has become a symbolic month during which the LGBTQ community and its allies come together to remember the Stonewall riots of 1969 and to celebrate the progress that has been made and will be made for LGBTQ rights. And whereas the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea has a diverse lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, and is committed to celebrating and supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for all people in the community. And whereas the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea has a long and proud history of celebrating diversity, promoting inclusion, and defending civil rights. And whereas continued discrimination against LGBTQ persons makes it important for cities to stand up and show solidarity and support for our LGBTQ residents and those in the community at large. And whereas in the days it is most important to be kind and to show respect to all of our community members, now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Dave Potter, Mayor of the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea, on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Carmel, hereby proclaim June 2022 as LGBTQ Pride Month. So thank you, Dave, and again, thank you for all of the members of the community for the welcome that we've all received here.
Thank you, Jeff, for your being a very good spokesman for the community as a whole. We really appreciate that. You've been great, so thank you. Much appreciated. All right, why don't we go on to the announcements? Chip, do you have any announcements as City Administrator?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Very quickly, I wanted to thank everyone who joined, who came by the farmers market last Thursday to say hello to Brandon and I. I think he did beat me. I was talking too much, but we were signing up people. We signed up almost 25 people onto our listservs, anything from, our listservs on wireless telecommunications facilities, accessory dwelling units, the budget. So thank you. It was great to meet people that I have not met in person because of the pandemic, although I've been corresponding or talking to them in the last 2 years. So thank you. And thank you to Ashley for getting us a table and tent. So that was a great event. We're going to be out there in the future. We'll bring some other department heads out for a couple of hours as well in the future. Really good news regarding the recruitment front. I wanted to report to you that since July 1st of last year, we have filled 19 positions. Those are 19 new employees with the city. So far this June, there's an additional 4. And then throughout the rest of the month of June, we're proposing, we're going to make offers and we'll have 4 additional for a total of 27 new employees in the last 12 months, over two per month. And so thank you to Maxine for her hard work and Jane as well, Jane Wilson, our HR professional as well. So you'll be meeting those people. I'm going to bring some folks to the next couple of meetings so you can meet them. We're going to talk to Mary so we can feature some of these folks. And again, Brandon and I will have them on our Friday vlog as well. Not the least of which is if you have not met Chief Ward. Chief Ward will be joining us in chambers. For those in the public, please say hello to Chief Ward. I think you'll find him very approachable, the consummate professional, but also a very approachable gentleman. And please reach out to him, offer to take him for a walk or a coffee, or in Mr. Kreitman's case, lecture him for a couple of hours about the. Tell him about the village. He's going to take all of our efforts to come up to speed on what goes on here. And again, he's got some amazing policing ideas for the village, and we look forward. And so thank you again, Chief Ward, for joining us. So that's what I have, Mr. Mayor. That's it.
Well done, Chip. I look forward to meeting the new employees. That'll be great. Good suggestion there. All right, Brian, do you have anything else from the legal world?
No, we don't have any reports from the closed sessions that we had last night.
That's good. Council members, looking to my right, Jeff?
Yes, as usual, I would just like to announce that we are going to have a climate change meeting Thursday, June 16th at 3:30 on Zoom. And we will be talking about the results of this meeting that we're going to have in a few minutes.
Good. All right. Bobby?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment, thanks for everybody that attended the Memorial Day celebration. I thought it was really well attended, and it was great being there, and it's an honor to be a part of that. I also, one of the things I'm really proud of is with this council, as part of this council, is I think that we've made some really great strides in forming a relationship with Carmel High. And we did that with the third graders the other day at the elementary school, and then we did that with the mock trial, or not mock trial, but the mock council the other day, and I thought that went really well. And I'm very proud of that. And then I just wanted to read this quick text I got from this student, was actually the student that Carrie worked with. But she says, hi, Mr. Richards, Carmel High School mock trial is planning to heading to Chicago this fall for international mock trial competition. It's a pretty big trip, so we're going to need some serious fundraising. I remember you mentioning that you knew some people that would be interested in offering maybe some work projects for the school teams to raise money or for trips like this. So if you know of anybody, could you please help? And I thought that was a really great note that a council member would get from a student at Carmel High reaching out, looking for help or looking for some ways to help raise money. So I just wanted to put a plug in for them. If anybody wants to help with the mock trial competition in Chicago, reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with this person.
Excellent.
Thank
Thanks, Bobby. Carrie? Karen?
Yes, as your AMBAG representative, I wanted to let you know that there was an appeal period that ended yesterday on the recent regional housing needs assessment numbers. There were 2 appeals filed and 1 comment filed. Now opens a 45-day comment period where anyone can make comments about the RHNA numbers, that's Regional Housing Needs Assessment. And you can do that by going to the website at ambag.org and looking up about the regional housing needs. The City of Carmel may or may not want to make a comment, or individuals can make comments. So if you have feelings about the RHNA numbers or concerns, you can make those comments at that site. Like Bobby said, I think it's so important when we have our young people involved in the town they live in. And a few weeks ago, we had a lot of volunteers in Mission Trail doing trail work. Sometimes, even though we live in this very, very beautiful place, we don't realize that our kids have different needs than we do at times. And I'd also like to remind you to look for the opening, the official opening, where you can actually go out and walk on the new trail at Monterey Regional Park District, over the old golf course. This is going to be a community trail during most of the time, but it's also going to be a place where cross-country teams can practice and meet and have meets. So it's going to be a wonderful addition to our community, and we're saying yes to people and yes to parks, and especially yes to young people.
Excellent. Thank you for your tour duty on AMBAG. That's a challenge out there for sure. Yes, it is. I'd just like to say I went to the Boz Skaggs concert the other night at the Sunset Center, and I'm constantly in awe of the quality of that facility. Just overwhelmingly impressive. I thought I was in Rockefeller Center catching a big show. It's incredible. Just the resources are amazing we have here. So it's very enjoyable. I hope everybody gets out there and takes advantage of it more. All right, why don't we move on to the orders of businesses? We've got a couple of fairly large tasks before us, and this one, but Carrie and Jeff have put a lot of effort into, so thank you in advance for all your hard work on this one. I'd like to receive a presentation of the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea's draft climate adaptation plan and draft climate action plan, and provide feedback to staff. Ines, the floor is yours. It's an amazing document.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I do have a presentation. Bear with me, there's a lot of
A lot of work that has gone through this and a lot of material to go through. So let's get started. So I'll start with a little bit of background on the project and the planning process. And then we will go into the draft climate adaptation plan that was developed. It includes a vulnerability assessment and climate adaptation strategies. And then we will go into the climate action plan. That includes a greenhouse gas inventory, a forecast, reduction targets, and strategies to meet those targets. So starting with the project background, this project started in fiscal year 2019-2020, so it has been going for a couple years. It has two main elements. The adaptation element has to do with providing greater resilience to climate change in Carmel, and then the action part has to do with reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We formed a climate committee in the fall of 2019, and that included 8 members. We had Jeff Barron and Carrie Theis from the council. We had 4 members of the public, John Hill, Michael LePage, Scott Lonergan, and Lynette Zimmerman. And we had 2 staff members, including me and Evan Court in the planning department. We also had 2 consultants helping us with this project, Rincon Consultants and LSA. So a little bit on the planning process. It did hit a snag at the very beginning of the project due to the COVID-19 shutdown. So we really started in earnest in the summer of 2020 with outreach to community groups and regional partners. We did a series of monthly presentations on climate threats and opportunities in the fall and going into the spring of 2021. Then in summer 2021, we developed the vulnerability assessment. And then from there, it really went a lot faster. We developed our greenhouse gas inventories and forecasts in the fall, our draft adaptation and action strategies around the same time. We had a community workshop in November 2021, and then based on all the feedback we received during all these meetings, as well as the workshop, we developed the draft adaptation and action plans. So starting with the adaptation plan, so that plan includes determining vulnerabilities of Carmel to the changing climate, identifying strategies to adapt, and then an implementation plan. So first looking at climate change hazards, they are organized here in orange, are the most immediate concerns. These are hazards that are already causing impacts either in Carmel or in the region. Then in yellow, you have those where we might have a little bit of a longer planning horizon, but these are still very significant threats. Drought is already causing significant impacts. However, it's identified in yellow because we've done quite a bit of work already to increase resilience. And then in white or gray, you have those hazards that we think are going to be significant, but we still need more science on those. Then, in addition to hazards, we really have to look at assets. What is going to be impacted by those hazards? So starting, there are 3 real major types of assets in Carmel. We have our community assets, and that includes our residents or visitors, especially our elderly populations and people with disabilities, and then also our local businesses and workers. Then we have our natural environment. That includes our beach, our special habitats and open spaces, and then our urban forest. Then we have our infrastructure and built environment, and then under that category, we have our utilities, our infrastructure, our shoreline infrastructure, including our seawalls revetments and also access infrastructure, our critical community facilities, as well as our downtown and residences. So the major vulnerabilities that we identified, including the fact that the parts of Carmel are in the very high fire hazard zone, and you can see it on the map on the right. The areas in orange are classified as very high fire hazard zone. We also have a lack of a plan for at-risk community members. Our urban forests and sensitive habitats are at risk from changing weather patterns, including more drought, more rain, more storms. We also have coastal resources and infrastructure that are at risk from sea level rise. Our power grid is at risk from wildfires and storms. And finally, our storm drain system is in need of repair and could be upsized also. So looking at the strategy to adapt to these vulnerabilities, we have three main goals: a healthy and safe and resilient community, a natural environment that is resilient to climate hazards, and a resilient infrastructure and built environment. So under each goal, we identified policies to meet those goals and then actions under each policy. I'm not going to go into each action in detail because we'd like to get out of here before midnight probably. However, they are detailed out in the plan, and so I will just sort of summarize it here. So the first policy is to provide effective emergency preparedness and response. And really here, we want to update and publicize our evacuation plan and take into account our persons at risk in that evacuation plan. Also, it includes collaborating with Monterey Fire and our local partners to increase our wildfire preparedness. Our next policy has to do with focusing adaptation efforts and engagement on the most vulnerable populations. And really here, it's focusing in our efforts on our people with disabilities and older residents, establishing a resilience hub, both in physical space and also having all that information available online, and really engaging with our community, our at-risk populations through our community networks, such as the CERT teams, so that there is a social support network for these. Next policy relates to minimizing the health impacts of climate change. You see the photo on the right that was taken a couple years back during the wildfires in the region. Wildfires will continue to cause air quality issues. So really that policy has to do with increasing indoor air quality so that we are more resilient to the health impacts of climate change. The following one is to increase our economic resilience. And really this here is to partner with the Chamber of Commerce, Visit Carmel, those types of business organizations to help increase the resilience of our economy and of our local businesses and help support our displaced workers during disasters. Under that policy, we also have an action for hiring a grant writer / climate coordinator to help implement these plans. So next, we're moving into the natural environment resilience. And the policy is to protect and restore our climate vulnerable habitats and ecosystems. You know, we already do quite a bit in the city for our ecosystems. We do have a forest management plan and master plans for Mission Trail and the North Dunes. Really these actions build on those plans and update those plans so that those habitats are more resilient to climate change. Additionally, conducting a monitoring program and sand supply analysis for our beach. And then next we're moving to infrastructure resilience. There is a lot under this, this goal and this policy. The policy is to support greater resilience and reliability of our infrastructure and built environment. There are many actions, including evaluating the feasibility of undergrounding utilities in our very high fire hazard zones, increasing the use of green infrastructure and capturing and infiltrating stormwater runoff, repairing and upgrading our storm drainage system, retrofitting our existing critical buildings so they are more resilient, more water conservation, and then increasing the resilience of our coastal infrastructure through a sea level, a coastal vulnerability study and additional monitoring. And then under infrastructure resilience, we also want to incorporate climate change adaptation into our relevant city plans and standards. These include our development standards, our planning guidelines, our shoreline management plan. So all these plans that help guide city development, we want to make sure that they take into account climate change. This is actually already happening in a way with the design guidelines update that the planning department is doing. We are considering climate in those updates. So moving on to climate action plan. So climate action plan includes an updated greenhouse gas inventory. It has an emissions forecast and targets, greenhouse gas reduction strategies, and an action plan also. So first, looking at the inventory, if you look at the table on the right, it identifies the greenhouse gas, the sectors of the city that generate greenhouse gases, and you can see in bold, there are 3 major sectors that generate most of the greenhouse gas emissions in the city. One is on-road transportation. The next one is natural gas use, both in residential and commercial. And then the third is solid waste. If you look into the future with forecasting, this graph sort of depicts how our greenhouse gas emissions are forecasted over the next few years through 2045. That line, that first line in red, and I don't know if I can point, yeah, I can put it. The first line in red is our business as usual forecast. So if we do nothing, this is the emissions we can expect to have over time. And those are mostly, the reduction is mostly due to equipment and appliances and vehicles becoming more efficient over time. Then in green, you have the forecast incorporating state mandates. So we know the state is coming up with mandates all the time. So we can expect an additional amount of reductions from those state mandates. And then in the red crosshatch is the delta between those state mandates and where we want to be. We have 2 goals or 2 targets. The first target is 40% below 1990 level by 2030, and that's that dot in the middle. And then the second target is carbon neutrality by 2045. And this is to be in line with state goals. So we do have a little bit of work to do. So in order to meet these targets, we have 6 overarching goals, and I will go into detail for each of them in the next slides. First, greenhouse gas reductions in the built environment. We want to increase energy efficiency and electrification of the built environment. So that is starting with training, education, incentives, and recognition for both residential and commercial projects that incorporate energy efficiency and electrification. And then moving from there into requiring electrification and more energy efficiency in those projects in either new building projects or major renovations. Then alternative transportation options to deal with these on-road transportation emissions. We want to reduce our reliance on automobiles. So increasing the use of bicycles, increasing alternative alternative transportation for bike to work and commuting. Prioritizing the use of electric vehicles. So those types of programs, also doing a green visitor program to help encourage our visitors to do the same. Then promoting clean energy. So this is promoting solar panels and battery backups on new projects. We want to incentivize these. Water conservation, we already do really well in landscaping. So it's really continuing to implement these requirements for drought-tolerant landscaping, but then also promoting gray water systems and rainwater harvesting. The next measure has to do with reducing waste that goes to the landfill. We're already doing quite a bit with the implementation of SB 1383. So it's really ramping up SB 1383 implementation, which takes organics out of landfills. Also reducing our contamination in our recyclable streams, which currently is at a little over 20%. We want to bring that down. We also would like to promote home composting and compost use. And the next measure has to do with maintaining and protecting our urban forest. It is good in many ways for greenhouse gas reductions. Not only do trees soak up greenhouse gases, but then also they reduce the heat down on the ground, and therefore they reduce the use of energy for air conditioning. And then evaluating the feasibility of allowing cool roofs to help reduce the need for, air conditioning. So with all these measures, we can expect the reductions that we see in blue on this graph. So as you can see, we would meet our 2030 target. We wouldn't quite make it to carbon neutrality. And the idea here is that we would update the plan sometime around 2030, taking into account new state mandates, new state actions, and at that point we could get to carbon neutrality. So finally, a little bit on implementation. The two plans recommend building on existing programs and partnerships. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, so we want to really work with our partners. We want to phase the implementation over time. These are very large programs. They won't get done in the next 2 years. It will take time. We want to especially emphasize public outreach and communication, because without the help of the public, we will not get where we want to be. Emphasizing also monitoring and evaluation so we can make sure we continue to be effective in our implementation. The committee also recommended a grant writer, climate coordinator position be added so that we ensure implementation. Also establishing a sustainability commission that would oversee this work. And then finally, funding is always an issue. And so we can use grants and rebates, which we already do. But we probably will need additional fees or adjusted fees to implement some of these projects that are fairly costly. In some cases, assessment districts, for example, in the case of undergrounding utilities. So we presented these two plans at the Planning Commission and Forest and Beach Commission in May. And we got quite a bit of positive feedback. And I'll summarize here the comments we received. We got support from the Planning Commission. We received support for electrification in commercial and residential buildings, reducing the use of cars, higher downtown development density to help increase the amount of housing available for our workforce, providing a shuttle service, especially for special events, more outreach on food waste composting, increasing our forest health and wildfire mitigation, including in Pescadero Canyon, considering green roofs as cool roofs, and then prioritize implementation to ensure success. And then at the Forest and Beach Commission, the commissioners supported the idea of a grant writer, climate coordinator position, also of a prioritized implementation schedule to ensure success. They also recommended adding Pescadero Canyon to our list of natural resources and then expediting bluff monitoring. So staff is looking for feedback from council on both of these plans globally, and then we had some questions also that we included in the staff report that were a little more specific. We were looking for feedback on whether the Climate Committee should be tasked with the oversight of the coastal engineering study, which is on the CIP for next year. Also, does the council support establishment of a sustainability commission? And if not, which appointed body would be tasked with reviewing or providing feedback on implementation of these plans? Additionally, what additional sources of funding should we prioritize to implement these projects? And then a last question has to do with the council's strategic priorities. The adaptation and action plans were part of the council's strategic priorities. So as they get completed and adopted, do we just take them out and leave nothing there, or should additional actions be added in the list to ensure continued emphasis on implementation? And I can answer any questions.
Great presentation, much appreciated. Are there any questions? Council members of Onions before I take it out to the public for comment? I don't see any. All righty, why don't I open it up then to the public? There's an opportunity for any member of the public to comment on this item. 3-minute limitation on that testimony. If you'd state your name for the record, I'd appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor Dave Potter, Mayor Pro Tem Bobby Richards, Council Members Jeff Barron, Karen Felito, Carrie Theis, City Administrator, and City Attorney. My name is Tasha Witt. I emailed some papers and I quote them to set the record straight. That our current information vacuum, offering consumers, business leaders, and policymakers the critical facts they need to rethink a more intelligent and secure future with reliable, secure, wired communications, more resilient to storm, flood, and fire, and reducing the enormous carbon footprint from the present wireless approach. It also demonstrates why the mistaken upcoming 5G frenzy, with its millions, gotta breathe, with its millions of small cell antennas, destined to clutter all neighborhoods and public rights of ways, is dangerous, wasteful, and unnecessary. Massive increases in 5G equipment equals massive increases in energy use. 5G is an energy hog. 5G is not sustainable. What is being packaged and marketed as smart technology is not always smart. The push for all things wireless is the wrong direction. 5G wireless networks are bad for the environment and have very serious global effects on bees, birds, and trees in relation to climate change. High windstorms cause tree branches to break and cut our overhead wires in our residential village, Sentinel Forest, causing yearly power outages and fire risks. Also, heavy-weighted cell tower antennas and equipment mounted on telephone poles 50 feet high with no wires to hold them up during high windstorms can cause cell towers to fall over on neighboring properties. Hardwired networks of broadband, fiber optic, undergrounding cabling is the way to go for sophisticated city planning, for faster, higher speeds, for internet cybersecurity, privacy, fire safety, resiliency, energy efficiency, and long-term sustainability for our future. I know you care as much as I do about making the best climate change preparations, city design planning, and wireless ordinance laws for Carmel-by-the-Sea and our planet. I appreciate all of your thoughtful planning, research, and hard work as you, our council representatives, make these very important decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, much appreciated. Is anybody else wishing to speak in the House here? Is there anybody in the Zoom world wishing to comment tonight? Yashin, what do you think? I don't see anybody.
Mayor, I don't see any raised hands.
I don't either. All right, we'll bring the council back then for discussion. We did have, could we put the matrix back up again with those questions and comments, just for some general direction? Yes, there we go, perfect. So, Jeff.
Yeah, I would, thank you. Before we get to these questions, I would like to extend my, and I'm sure I speak for Carrie as well, my sincere appreciation both to Evan and Agnes for all the work that we've done over the course of the past 3 years. I know it's been a pretty long road. And I would also like to extend my appreciation to Michael LePage and Lynette Zimmerman and Scott Lonergan and John Hill, the committee members that we ferreted out and the council appointed to this commission back in, I don't know, it seems like forever ago, back when I first started. It's been a long road, and I'm very appreciative of all the effort that we, all of us, and the community at large have put into this effort.
Jeff, if I might just like to add that I think as a council, we appreciate the hard work you guys put into this. I don't think any of us ever envisioned what this was going to be as far as the magnitude of it goes. I did happen to bump into Ken Spielfogel today, who broke his leg when he was in Toronto. And for him to say to me, Dave, I've got to get over to your climate action meeting, and he was disturbed that you might be irritated with him because he'd gone ahead and both. You relocated the meeting, so he changed the date of the meeting so he could make it. And he was really, he was just like, I got to get over there. So I went by to pick up my wife after lunch today, and he was standing out in front of her hotel because he has to stay there because it is a handicap room. And he was standing there with his walker, getting ready to get in the car. He said, I've got to get to that meeting. I've got to get to the meeting. It's really important. I don't know what kind of Kool-Aid that guy's drinking, but you got him convinced. Very, very impressive, actually, for Kenny to be a partner of that. Much appreciated. Go ahead, Jeff.
That was it. Those were my comments. Just my 3 comments.
All right. Well, Carrie, did you want to comment?
Yes, thank you. It says a lot about our community that we had this committee really stick with this long process and to come up and have the help of the staff and come up with 2 documents that I think will really carry us through the next 25, 30 years. Part of the problem with climate change issue is really having to think in the future. We really don't see, we see some things now that are happening, but we're really trying to plan for the future. And it affects things such as marketing. You know, if we don't be careful, we may not have a beach that people can walk on, that we market. We may not have, have trouble with our bluffs being degraded by the powers of the ocean. We have a sewage treatment plant that even though it's not in our 1 square mile, it is servicing us and it's in the floodplain. So those types of things, it's really hard to understand what all is going to be affected. And I think this report really helps people, if you take the time to read it, because I know it's quite lengthy, to realize how we may be impacted by the issue of climate change. And so I really appreciate working with Jeff and getting this to the point where we can start analyzing some of these impacts. So thank you.
It does seem to me that one of the things we do need to have some consideration is how we're going to continue on with this work. You've done an awful lot of groundwork here. I think that the Climate Study Committee is a good idea. I don't know quite what it'd look like right at the moment, but I would be supportive of finding a way to go ahead and either task the Planning Commission with that in the future. I'm a little concerned about the funding aspect of it. One of the things I saw was create an in lieu fee or a tax. I think that's maybe a little premature while we go ahead and discuss what options there are for grants, that kind of thing. So do we have consensus on that process? We don't have to get there tonight, but I do think that it would be a good idea to continue on with the planning process. Karen?
Yes, first of all, thank you to all of you. This has been a labor of duty and love, and I attended a few of the meetings on Zoom, lurking to see what was going on at times, and I think I came to one in-person meeting, and I was very impressed with how you were able to, without a consultant at first, get this going and continue it. The only plans that are ever a waste of time and energy in the public are plans that are put on a shelf. And that's not what we can afford to do with this, nor is it something we would want to do with this. In order to honor your work, the staff's work, and the volunteer members of that committee, I think we absolutely do need to figure out a way to start to implement some of these things in various departments within the city. Every department within the city that does anything has to be part of creating the opportunity for implementation. I'm not sure what a sustainability commission looks like. I think we have had a little bit of difficulty attracting people to serve on commissions, especially when they're long-standing. This was amazing that your volunteers stayed for 3 years. I kind of think task force is maybe something we should consider, and it could be both staff and volunteers from the community, but the department heads within the city do have to have some sort of, I feel, some sort of skin in the game, so to speak, and presence, because your staff will know what they can implement, how they can implement, and what they need in order to be able to implement probably the best. I served on a statewide pitch canker task force, which was both volunteers and agency people, and the hardest thing for volunteers were some of the agency people were kind of in the mindset of can't happen, can't do it. And the volunteers were, well, why not? So, you know, you have to have both sides of that equation. But this is something that is so important to Carmel. In 1983, when we almost lost Scenic due to terrible storms, 16 cypress trees went down, part of the road went down. That could have been a really, really terrible thing for the city, but people got together, they figured out how to fix it, how to shore it up, and now we're tasked with maintaining that infrastructure as long as we can in a responsible manner. This is not something where neglect will work. Neglect would not be smart, nor would it be benign. So I'm very supportive of making a commitment through the council, through the departments, and so on, to continue this work and make sure that it doesn't go on a shelf, and identify future funding sources when they're needed and necessary. And, you know, some things don't sound very exciting, but they're absolutely necessary. And I think we as a community need to own our future and be present in our future. So I can't thank you enough for getting us started on this. And I'm just, you know, very supportive of moving forward.
Excellent, good. Bobby?
Thanks. Yeah, I would just say thank you for all that that did all this hard work. It's a tremendous document. And Agnes, everybody that was involved on staff, my hat's off to you. Of course, I'd be in support of continuing this and figuring out a way to implement it somehow into our city. Thank you.
Excellent. Jeff, did you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I do. You know, some of these questions, you know, as we were sort of getting to the end of the process, you know, 2 or 3 months ago, these were some of the questions that the committee had for the council, and I'm not sure that we have enough clarity. And if you like, I can go through, I can really briefly go through these 4 questions and sort of tell you why the committee, why staff and the committee are asking these questions. And so we can understand, you know, what we would like to do is incorporate the feedback that we received tonight on these questions into the final report, so that we don't, so that we can make a recommendation that we think will be, that we hope, you know, we, you know, really hope will be supported by the council. And I know that some of these things are just, they just seem like kind of bookkeeping remarks, but they were important enough to the committee that we sort of raised these 4 questions.
Did you want to go through those briefly?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
The first question, should the Climate Committee be tasked with oversight of the coastal engineering study? You know, we have this, as Agnes represented a few minutes ago, we have this thing on this study that we weren't able to get to because of funding and time that's on the capital improvement project next year, this coming year. And the question is, should the committee that Carrie and I are a member of, the sort of lead, be tasked with who should be responsible for getting this committee, this work done? Should it be the Climate Committee or the Planning Commission? We did, you know, a little bit of background. I did feel that the members of the committee had put in quite a bit of time with the 3.5 years of effort that we had undertaken so far. And I was a little bit reticent to ask them to sign up for another year so that we could do this, but the 4 of them were game. And so this is really a request. I guess this first item is just a request from the committee to be allowed to continue for another year until this work is finished.
Well, I think you saw a consensus already that we do support that.
Great. The next one was sort of, the question number 1 is moving for the next year. Question number 2 is really about what to do after that work is done. Do we, who should be, Karen, who should be responsible for sort of overseeing the planning that is involved? Should we have a sustainability commission? Should we instead task this responsibility with the planning commission, which right now seems to have a lot on its plate? what does the council think the recommendation should be moving forward in years two through four, however?
Can I ask that? Would Forest and Beach be an appropriate commission to deal with this?
I think, we had three ideas. One was the Sustainability Commission that's on here. One was the Forest and Beach Commission, and one was the Planning Commission. Those were sort of the three options. And the first option that we sort of put to the side was Forest and Beach, because we decided that, the sort of relevance of the forest, while the Forest and Beach Commission is responsible for sort of the marquee issue, which is sea level rise, and to some extent, the sort of increase in temperatures, sort of protecting the natural environment. The commission thought that of the two established commissions, the Planning Commission is just more involved in planning, like that's their responsibility. So that's where that recommendation ended up. That was the first commission to be discarded, and we split with respect to the Sustainability Commission versus the Planning Commission. We split. The commission thinks to be upfront, I support the commission's recommendation was to have a Sustainability Commission. I'm not, have it so that it would be prominent, so it would be prominently featured sort of as something that the city is really proud of. I don't know whether that's I have misgivings about whether that's the right path to take in such a small community and with such a small staff. Like there is significant overhead, there's overhead in putting together the Brown Act reports every month and doing all that stuff. And to me, me personally, not the commission, it felt like that was an onus. That was too much overhead.
I tend to agree with you there, Jeff, to some extent. I think that possibly if we go ahead and do a design review committee, maybe that'll reduce the workload on the commission itself and the Planning Commission. Maybe we could then go ahead and look at possibly not having to add additional staff, but go ahead and task the Planning Commission with that task then.
I think that sort of works in, we've talked about the design review committee before, and that's a year off, and if the climate committee stays around for the next year, then that would lead into sort of moving those responsibilities over to
And then maybe we'd have a better handle on the costs and grants that are available, those kind of things too.
Yeah.
Good.
The third item, the big ticket item that Anya obviously talked about was undergrounding the power lines. And that's an enormous issue for any one of a number of reasons. So Anya, are there other, like it seems like the drainage issue is sort of the other sort of large ticket item. And I think the council has indicated in the past that would be just funded as we go along through the capital improvement project budget.
Yeah, any recommendations associated with the coastal engineering study would probably be quite costly, potentially.
Yeah, there's that, but we don't have a handle on, right. So there's sort of undergrounding, Anya is right, there's the undergrounding, and then there's whatever happens with the sea level rise, and that's a whole thicket of, right now, that's a whole thicket of unknown things. So, we've talked about, as a council, we've talked about undergrounding the power lines before, and I think we all look at it and our eyes get really big, and wonder what it would be like to take on such a project in our square mile that will cost, $75 million or whatever it is, and how we would go about funding that. Anya's talked about the special district to do that, and I think that that's a great idea, but there is a lot of education, obviously, that would need to be done before we put the formation of such a district out to, presumably the city would do the work, and then we would put the district out to a vote, or however it is that would work.
Necessitate a vote of the public, I would think, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
So.
And that one, council, if I may, Mr. Barron, I don't think that's something you need to decide on tonight, because again, I think we're gonna get some more information, we'll get some prices for things, and Bob will sharpen his pencil. And again, as we begin the work on the coastal engineering study, we'll get a new list of capital projects that'll come out of that, some of which we'll prioritize, obviously, others that'll go on the council project priority list as well. And the same holds true for the fourth question in the list, which is, again, in the next, now, hopefully we'll get the budget put to bed tonight, and we can come back and revisit your priority list, the 16 priority projects, some of which are at or near completion, and we can reseed that list. And again, we can be adding some of the adaptation strategies to the priority list.
Comfortable with that?
Would there be any wisdom in perhaps having a community workshop event where this is presented to the public with the goal of exciting a few people into wanting to serve in the future on implementation of this, and then perhaps look towards a blended type of body that brings in Forest and Beach and planning, and then our public works, which will be probably intimately involved with anything that happens, to sort of blend it into a group that brings their own puzzle pieces here together, and sort of goes at it from all those different
I think it's a great
directions.
idea. I think it's a great suggestion to have the committee talk about that as an option. We certainly want to get Anya's and Evan and Bob's fingerprints on that, but the challenge, with no disrespect to the study, is it's not the sexiest topic. I mean, it's a very current topic, and
It's a
something
scary
we should all be.
topic.
It is scary, but how do we can't get a lot of people for the budget, so how do we excite people enough to come to a meeting like that? But again, it's something I think we can think, Ms. Witt's going to come, so thank you. But let us think about that, and maybe Councilmember Barron, you can pose that question to your committee, and Ms. Twomey will come as well. So pose that to the group, and then again, we can get Anya's to opine on that as well. But I think it's a great idea.
All right. Jeff, was there anything else?
No, I know, I'm looking at, thank you, I'm looking at question 4, and, I'm not a big fan of, and I hope I'm not doing myself a disservice, the committee a disservice here. I'm not a big fan of tying the future council's hands. I think that this whole plan is a roadmap, and I think that we as a council and as a community need to consistently move forward with that roadmap. And I think that the urgency of moving forward is something that needs to be refreshed over and over again. And I'm comfortable not making a specific rule about putting adaptation or action plans on the strategic planning list, which I think is what this question is about, but rather having this discussion every 6 months or every year as we go through that process and saying, there's not enough climate work on here or whatever, and sort of moving the projects forward as they come about. I think the committee's idea of having this commission, either the Sustainability Commission or the Planning Commission, is to put forth these ideas and sort of manage the climate report as a project. And I think that those things will bubble up. And I think it will be up to future councils to decide whether these things are important enough to fund. And obviously, I think they're important enough to fund, and I'm confident that future councils will think that as well.
I think you're right, Mr. Barron. I think that where you'll see some of the adaptation strategies are not on a priority list. You're going to see them on the CIP.
Yeah.
And so again, we'll have to exert a lot of discipline to make sure that those projects carry the same weight as, again, the projects that are more visible to our public. So we need to continue to use the plans as the touchstone to help seed our CIP.
So under the heading of leading by example, it seems to me that as I look through the possible actions here, actions 1.3.3 through 1.3.5 could reflect on the city of Carmel by itself, in that what we could do is it speaks about on-site power generation. It talks about battery storage. Chip, you and I were just at the largest battery storage project in the United States yesterday when we were out at PG&E and Moss Landing. We were there. I was the only elected official, I think, from all of Monterey County there, was I not?
Yes, sir.
And that was because I was interested in what we were talking about tonight. So I think if we were to go, didn't we do an energy assessment a little while ago on our facilities here?
We've done a couple, Bob, we've done a couple with those, and of course, we have replaced all the fixtures in city facilities, but we can dust that off as well.
So I would think maybe we could take a look at maybe some solar projects where we could actually generate some power around here. We may partner with the Carmel Unified School or Carmel, the Unified School District. They've got some campus space, maybe do a joint project with them. But I do think if we could get out there, do a public-private project, it would make a big difference, and we'd look like we were really taking this seriously as a municipality. I'd like to see us prioritize that.
One of the last years that I was on the Forest and Beach Commission, we went through our shoreline management plan and our forest management plan and the management plan for Mission Trail Nature Preserve to see if they were still viable or needed updating. And we went line by line by line, red not implemented, green implemented, I think it was yellow partially implemented. And what we found out is our plans at the time were actually still appropriate and very good. It was the implementation of those plans which was the sticking point. And I think that happens in no matter what plan you come up with, it is how do you implement it? And I think this is so important for the future, yet it's hard to get your hands around it. But I think our departments could also start to really live with this plan as it is now and start to question and be creative about how they can start to implement some of the easiest low-hanging fruit that's there to be done into what they do on a yearly basis within their departments as well, and report back that they're doing some of these things as just part of their doing business. And I think that that would be also something that would be helpful, that the department heads would kind of meet around this and see what are the things we could already start doing tomorrow that might be better than how we do it now.
You can just look at your CIP again. Brandon's buying electric vehicles. Bob's got a grant application into 3CE for an electric sweeper. We'll talk to Chief Ward about pursuit-rated electric police cars. We've got zero emission electric motorcycle for the police department. So yes, I think you can look at what we've done. We can continue to, I agree with you, we need to continue to keep our focus on those types of opportunities.
So it seems pretty obvious we don't want this sitting on the shelf anywhere, so we're very appreciative of the work that everybody put into it to date. Obviously, the work is nowhere near done, but this is a great start point, so I think you've got adequate direction, don't you, Chip?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, that noted, I think we can move on then to the next item, which happens to be approving a 2.14% rate increase to the charges by green waste haulers. Agnes, this is you again. This is Agnes Knight. Love it. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
All right, me again. We will make it shorter this time.
Brevity is good.
So yes, this presentation is about the annual index-based rate adjustment for solid waste recycling and organics collection by our franchise hauler, which would be effective July 1st, 2022. So first, a little bit of background. Green Waste was selected in June of 2014 for a 15-year term as our franchise hauler. The franchise agreement with Green Waste dictates annual rate adjustments. The standard rate adjustment is an index-based rate adjustment, and it includes the cost of disposal and processing at the Waste Management District. That's also called the tipping fee. It also includes inflationary indices for adjustments to the green waste labor and operating costs, and then the cost of the city's franchise fee and other regulatory fees. There we go. So the rate adjustment for this upcoming year has been calculated by HF&H and reviewed by staff at a 2.14% collection rate increase. You can see in the table on the right, that represents an increase for standard residential 32-gallon rate from $49 to $50.05 monthly. This increase is due primarily to a 7% tipping fee increase at the Waste Management District and modest increases in labor and material indices for the period reviewed, which is not current period. So the other thing to note is we have started implementing SB 1383. It is a significant push for us, both locally and regionally. We are working regionally with the Waste Management District. Just a little reminder on all the things we're supposed to do. We're supposed to provide organics collection to all residents and businesses, as well as enforcement on those who do not participate, establish an edible food recovery program, conduct education and outreach. We have procurement requirements. We have to do some capacity planning. So quite a bit to get done. And so we established an MOU with the Waste Management District for regional implementation costs. So the Waste Management District and the Technical Advisory Committee implement a portion of the requirements regionally. We are part of this MOU, and for fiscal year 22-23, our share of the cost is $7,500. It's actually a little less than it was last year, and these costs are included in the green waste rates. And we are locally, we're coordinating with green waste on the implementation, both in residential and commercial, including outreach right now to, businesses and residents. So the recommendation tonight is to adopt Resolution 2022-050, which approved a 2.14% rate increase to the charges by the city's hauler for collection of solid waste, recycling, and organics as of July 1st, 2022, and then an amendment to the MOU between the Waste Management District and the cities to take into account the fiscal year 22-23 costs. Are there any questions?
So I'll deviate from my normal format a little bit by asking Carrie, as our representative of the Waste Management District, is there anything you'd like to add to Agnes's report?
Well, it's always interesting that because we have this contract, it comes before the council for these increases. Our sewage treatment facility never comes before us because those bills are part of your property tax statement. So you don't realize when they go up. Most people, all right, we don't have a sewage treatment monthly bill. It's part of the property tax statement. So, we see these increases and, it's hard to fathom, but this is part of doing business in the state of California with handling our waste and minimizing our impacts on the environment in terms of the landfill and the methane gas that's released if we don't be careful. So I know it seems like we get a lot of increases here, but it's part of doing business and part of doing what we can to minimize the impact of our waste. I actually have an incinerator on my property that was used 65 years ago. So we've come a long way with handling our waste, and obviously we do a much better job of it, and this is part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Carrie, for your sincere efforts in the waste management world. It's a messy business, but we appreciate you taking the time. All right, I'll open it up for questions. Is there anybody in the public with any questions on this item or comments at the moment? Question, yeah.
I was just wondering, is there anybody other than Carrie here from the Waste Management District?
Oh, good question. I believe Zoe Schultz is on the line, and we also have, I think we have Jim Moresco from Green Waste as well.
Can I ask them a question? Or would you rather go out to the public first?
Well, it looks like Zoe's ready, so Zoe, here you go. Bobby, go ahead.
There she is.
Hi, Zoe. So a lot of these mandates, and I know that there are a lot of these unfunded mandates. Has Green Waste gone up to the state and asked for some of these funds to come to the cities to help us with all these increases constantly? Because Carrie is right. It does seem like you guys are coming back every 3 months and asking for an increase, and it's always embedded in something different. Whether it's the or whether it's tipping fees, or whether it's because you come on property and pick up our trash cans from behind our garages or whatever it may be. But now with the unfunded mandate of the solid waste, I was just wondering if you asked the state to help out with some of these.
Yeah, those are great questions. Thank you, council member. Yeah, good questions. We have done some work regionally, as Agnes has mentioned, with our technical advisory committee that consists of all of the member jurisdictions of our area, of which Agnes is part of, as well as all of the haulers, including green waste recovery. So we are formulating plans for these mandates regionally. A couple things to note is I represent the waste management district, so the portion of the tipping fee that is being requested is for processing of materials. That is the portion of the bill. It's a portion of the bill, a small portion of the bill, but it's the 7% increase that you see before you. 7% on our end. It's much less when it comes to your end. It's about $1.05 or 98 cents of that $1.05 increase monthly. Cal Recycle has issued this calendar year some relief in funding. They heard from us, as well as many other member jurisdictions, about this unfunded mandate, how difficult it was to implement during the middle of the pandemic, and has provided a little bit of relief in terms of grant funding. So we took full advantage of that. The city of Carmel just, I believe, received grant funding this month. And that is going towards implementation costs for SB 1383.
I might also add that the League of California Cities Board of Directors has asked that the state reimburse us with their excess monies for some of the unfunded mandates that we've been handed down over the course of time. We're optimistic that we will see some money coming to the city of Carmel for that.
Right. So Zoe, did some of those, the funding that you did receive, did that help us with this number of 7%? Would it have been higher if you did not receive those?
The 7% actually relates mostly to the processing fees, the tip fees that are being assessed at our district. We have not had a tip-free increase in the last 2 years. Has to do with items such as wages going up, supply chain, long-term capital costs to include things like landfill closure costs that we will be incurring in the future, and not to burden our future generations with that. So those are the considerations that go into that 7% tipping fee. Separately, there's an MOU for SB 1383 costs. And yes, the grant funding is helping to reduce that, burden.
And then one last question, and I've asked this before, but say over the next year, do you see any more increases for our citizens for the green waste?
For green waste, that's a question that should be probably handled by Jim Moresco, who's on the line. I'm here to represent the district, not the hauler.
I'm sorry, I understand that. Did you hear it?
Sorry, so I represent the Monterey Regional Waste Management District, the facility north of Marina where your recycling and waste is processed. Separately, Jim Moresco is here from Green Waste Recovery, and he represents the hauler, so the trucks that are going through the neighborhoods and delivering materials.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious to know what else we're going to look forward to seeing in the next year, what kind of increases we're going to look forward to seeing.
So
there would be no additional increases expected from our end. This is covering the SB 1383 mandate as well as tipping fees for the entire fiscal year.
Thank you.
yeah,
You're
maybe
welcome.
I can add a little bit to this. The rate adjustment in July of each year is incorporated in the franchise agreement. So each year in June, we will look at a rate adjustment. We don't know ahead of time what the rate adjustment amount is. We don't have anything else planned between now and next year. Does that help?
All righty, why don't I open it up then to the public, unless there's any other questions by council members? Anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item tonight? In the room? Don't see anybody in the room. Anybody in the Zoom world?
Mayor, nobody in the Zoom world.
All righty, we'll bring it back to the council then for direction. Council members, your preference? Seems like it's fairly self-evident we don't have much of an option here.
I have a couple questions. Maybe Agnes, you can answer these. Is every resident in Carmel required to have trash pickup?
Yes.
Yes, because I have seen people dumping trash into the containers at the beach, and I've wondered why they would do that if they're required to have trash pickup, but that's probably an enforcement issue. Secondly, you mentioned waiver program. Can you tell us something about that?
So as part of SB 1383 implementation, we do have a waiver. Well, we haven't initiated the waivers, but we do need to establish a waiver program for those businesses who do not generate. So there's two ways that you can potentially get a waiver. One is de minimis, where you do not generate organic waste. Say you're a retail store that really just only generates cardboard. There is really no reason for them to get, an organic waste bin that is going to sit empty, and we have a very limited space in town on top of it. So there's those types of waivers, and then there will be a waiver process for those businesses who have no space. That has been an issue in Carmel for a long time. The 3 cans is space consuming. And so for some of those businesses who do not have any space and can demonstrate that they do not have space, we will have a waiver program for those as well.
Okay, my question, thank you.
And
You've answered
this
that.
will be reviewed individually by myself, by the environmental review. So this isn't going to be an automatic with green waste. This is going to come through the city and will be approved by the city.
Okay, I think that's important because I think sometimes, perhaps with a little counseling and problem solving, you can come up with either room for that or a different way of order less things that come in cardboard boxes, and then you might have room. Because I know a restaurant that gets a waiver that would possibly generate more in one day than I generate in a week or 2 or 3. So I think for residents, if they see too many waivers, they're not going to be happy because they're doing the right thing. And if they see a lot of businesses just, want a waiver from this, they're going to want to know that there was some sort of problem solving and counseling
Correct.
going
Yeah,
along.
there are some very strict parameters around the waivers, so we're not anticipating a large number of people being able to get them. I think a decent number of the retail spaces and some of the offices possibly, just because they don't generate that type of material. But otherwise, we will work individually with each business that applies to, to review the validity of their claims.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, so we have a motion then to go ahead and approve the resolution and then go ahead and add amendments, make the amendments to the existing MOU.
I move that we adopt Resolution 2022-050, approving the 2.14% rate increase to charges by green waste recovery for the collection of solid waste, recycling, organics. This will be effective July 1, 2022, and it also includes approving an amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between the Monterey Regional Waste Management District and member agencies for fiscal year 22-23.
Well done.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Yashin, could we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barron,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito,
Yes.
Councilmember Tice,
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Breaking my record of always saying no, yes.
Is that a no? Sorry.
Is it no? Is it, my no's do no good, so it's a yes.
Okay, to clarify, it's a yes. Mayor Potter?
Aye.
We have 5 yeses. It's a unanimous vote.
Very good. All right, that then moves us on to our third order of business, which is Resolution 2022-036, ratifying appointments to the Historic Harrison Memorial Library Board of Trustees, Historic Resource Board, the Planning Commission. Ashley, are you here?
I'm going to do the presentation, Mayor.
Okay.
It's going to be very brief. We don't have a slide. As a background, at the December 6, 2021 council meeting, the expiration date of the boards and commissions terms were changed to expire on May 30th. This year, there are 7 terms that were scheduled to expire on May 30th, 2022. A recruitment was opened on February 14 and ended on April 11th. The ad hoc committee interviewed all the applicants, and tonight they will talk about their recommendations to fill those vacancies. So the floor is yours, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem.
All righty. So, Bobby, did you have anything? It was you and I that were part of the subcommittee. And we've been a part of the appointing the recommendations that are before us tonight.
I guess as always, it's always a tough position to interview people that are willing to volunteer for a position. And I can't show my appreciation enough to the people that did show up, the people that have served. I think it says a lot for our community that we do have so many people that apply for these commissions. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate working with you, Mayor Potter, and I'll let you take it from here.
All right, so what we have before us then is John Kreischer and Phil Perdue for the Harrison Memorial Library Board. For HRB, we've got Jordan Corman and Eric Dyer, and then for the Planning Commission, we have Michael LePage and Aaron Allen. Are there any questions regarding these appointments? Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item? Anybody in the audience? All right. Well, I'm happy to make the motion that we approve the appointments as before us now.
I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes. I would just like to make a comment. I had some concern with one of the nominations, not any concern about the person, just the, and certainly not that this person is a newcomer to the community, because I think it's wonderful that we have new people stepping up and volunteering. I think that's really good. I just am slightly concerned that there is no prior experience with planning issues, and this is a very, very tough year with all of the things that will be coming to the Planning Commission, both through the design traditions, the wireless ordinance, the ADU ordinances, the housing element update, and so on and so forth. So I would just hope that there is a lot of homework done and a lot of assistance and help, whether you might want to call it tutoring or whatever, when we do have new people added to commissions that may not have some of the historical background or the institutional knowledge that some people have had that have served. And I know that in my 16 years of serving as a volunteer on that Forest and Beach Commission, I learned a lot through those years, and I think volunteerism is so vital to this community that perhaps we could somehow in the future encourage more people to actually step in and volunteer so that we continue to grow good commission members. And that's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's an overall comment, not specific, but yes, I think we all share that concern. So,
Mayor, I think
Yes.
Karen did hit something on that. I'm sorry, I'll just say it real quick, but you did hit something, the nail on the head with your growing. We are trying to constantly grow teams, grow commissioners, grow commissions, and so you hit that nail right on the head. Thank you, Karen.
Jeff?
Yeah, I echo Karen's comments, and you know, the analogy I used, the analogy I use is fairly crude. I think a couple of years ago, we had someone move onto my street, someone from Florida, and the first thing they did was paint their tan house white. And it shows a sort of an unfamiliarity with how, you know, I talk about this a lot, how the architecture, you know, how the houses fit into the forest and whatnot. And I think it was just sort of naive. I did speak to Ms. Allen this morning. I had a nice, pleasant conversation with her. I have no doubt that she will fulfill her duties as sort of are outlined in the municipal code. I would ask, I agree with the mayor and the vice mayor's comments that it is good to bring new blood. I'm wary, but it's not my job. I don't feel like it's my job to really make these appointments. So I do hope Ms. Allen and staff, I do hope that you tutor her and mentor her, and I hope that she gets the support from the commission that she needs to make these decisions as a newcomer that are in the interests of the sort of long-term interests of the community. Thank you.
I think we've got our caveats out there. I think that'll make sense. Just speaking personally, as somebody who got into local government for the wrong reason, I was upset, at the Architecture Review Committee in the city of Monterey because they denied 2 bay windows in front of a home. I had no experience in local government whatsoever, never taken a poli-sci class in my life, but I was irritated. I spent 4 years on the Architecture Review Committee, 2 years on the Planning Commission, 4 years on City Council. It's been downhill ever since. I'm telling you, it's a real challenge, and I really appreciate anybody who wants to take the time to step up. And I can tell you that this woman is really dedicated. I've never seen anybody spend so much time getting up to speed so quickly. So I think that speaks well, but I think the caveats are well founded. So thank you all.
I will say to your comment, Dave, that I hope your current position, I hope you don't feel like it's been downhill all the way to the mayor of our community.
20 years over on the dark side, I feel like I've been redeemed and brought back to life by being here in Carmel, let me tell you. No, local government's where it's at. I said that when I got elected. I'm glad to be back, so. Yeah, okay, well, with that said, I think we had a motion, we had a second.
I did want to add one more thing, though. I think it's very important when you volunteer and step up to be on a commission that you be present and that you be prepared. And I hope that all of our new commission members will think about that, not miss meetings if they can absolutely help it, be prepared, do the homework, and good luck to all of them, because the future of Carmel is, in a way, in the hands of our commissions.
And Karen, you're on fire tonight. That's actually very relevant to some commissioners that are seated right now that are not attending the meetings on a regular basis. Bobby and I are going to sit down and have a discussion with them about what is your level of commitment to this job. I mean, there's also personal issues that can get in the way. But honestly, if you don't have the time to commit, then we should back out and let somebody else in that wants to do that. So I will be doing that in the near future, so appreciate that. All right,
Good, and let's not forget the people that stood up and volunteered for future possible
Absolutely. We've
appointments.
encouraged everybody that applied to reapply.
Thank
And
you.
actually, one of the guys that has applied is going to be good for an upcoming vacancy, I believe, so. But enough said about that. Okay, let's call the question here. We have a motion, we have a second. Yashin, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Barron.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Yes.
Councilmember Tice.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Yes.
And Mayor Potter.
Aye.
Vote is unanimous.
All right, thank you all. And thank you to all those that applied also. All right, public hearings, the resolution 2022-047, adopting the fiscal year 2022-2023 appropriations limits. This is a standard presentation here. Robin?
Yeah, Sean, if you can put up the presentation, please.
By the time she gets it up, you may be done with the appropriations limit report.
Yes, it's very, very straightforward. Well, Yashin's working on that, I'll just say that, yes. We have obviously two components to get the budget adopted for the year. The first is adopting the GAN appropriations limit. It is a requirement. We don't have a choice to not do it. It is in our state's constitution. The state Department of Finance, they've set the formula. They send us the factors to work with. We really just plug in our budgeted revenue elements that qualify as taxes. We put it into the formula, and we have our appropriations limit. So that's really all there is to that.
Robin, I'm going to be shocked if anybody speaks to this anyway.
Yes, you figured, okay. You got it right as I arrived.
Okay.
That's all it took.
All right.
The mere thought of your presence.
Okay. Yeah, so that's really it. We do have a choice in using what they call the local assessment roll or the per capita personal income. Again, those are elements provided by the Department of Finance. Historically, the city has used the per capita personal income. Still recommending to use that factor for consistency. And also the second choice is whether to use the change in the city or the county population. Historically, we have used the change in the city population. Again, recommending to stay with that for consistency. As I said, we take those factors. We start with the appropriation limit from the current fiscal year, 21-22. We apply the state factors, do the multiplication, and we come up with the appropriation limit for 22-23, which is $39,201, $201,580. And really, it's really just a recommendation to approve because we really don't have a choice to do otherwise. So that's
Okay, are there
what I
any
have for
questions
that.
of Robin by council? Anybody in the public with a question or comment regarding this item, both in the Zoom world and in this building? Consistent with the past, nobody's interested. Okay. So could we have a motion then to move the staff recommendation here?
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, Yashin, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Barron,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito,
Yes.
Councilmember Tice,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards,
Yes.
and Mayor Potter.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous.
Okay, then our next order of business is Resolution 2022-048, adopting the fiscal year 2022-2023 annual operating and capital budget. Robin?
Rob, why don't you stay there for, well, I just have a couple of opening comments, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of words of thanks. This is the budget adoption hearing. I wanted to thank especially Robin. Again, this will be her last budget presentation. I'm sure she's really sad about that. And Russell.
We are.
Russell and Anna and
Honestly.
Yvette and Ashley, yeah, we are. We are. Leslie, Fenton, Max, Brandon, the department heads, and you, council, and the public. I want to thank again everyone who drafted questions. We answered those. They're in the packet as part of our usual protocol. You know, specifically, you had a lot of discussion at your last meeting about, on May 17th, about our investment in natural resources. So on page 49 of the packet, we broke that out. I know I've been through that with a couple of you specifically to talk about what we've added in there. We didn't add any money in there. What we did is we added an explanation of a roll down of where those funds will be going. We made the modifications at your direction. We added $15,000 for the chamber, $4,000 for a total of $19,000. Based on your direction for the $4,000 for the council discretionary grant program. You know, this is the first budget that I've presented in 7 or 8 budgets that conservatively delves into fund balance. And that's because not only do we need very sorely to remodel our police department, but again, we haven't spent a lot of money on capital projects in the last 2 fiscal years because of the pandemic. So what I can tell you is that it's very measured use of fund balance, and again, we're trying to catch up on that capital work. This remains a budget that's oriented toward fiscal sustainability. If you have projects that you don't see on here, please tell me, and we'll add them to the mid-year budget review. You'll have Councilmember Tice is not running for council again, so you'll have a new member. But again, let's see how the next. Pardon me?
Maybe 2 new members.
maybe three, maybe two members and a mayor. But, again, we'll review the budget at mid-year, and we'll also be obviously vigilantly monitoring our revenues and expenditures over the next 6 months to see how we're doing, because we do not anticipate continuing the vibrancy that we've enjoyed this fiscal year, again, as we're looking at a recession, perhaps as early as the fall. Today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average on the year was down 9%. NASDAQ was down 22% on the year, and S&P was down almost 13%. So again, we are seeing, and it's obvious, it's in all the news. You don't even have to try to read it. It's kind of in your face. So again, something's happening with the economy. It's cooling off, and we just want to be conscious of that. And again, that's the budget that you see before you. So I want to thank you for your dedication, Council. Tonight's draft budget becomes our budget after you adopt it. And we wouldn't be here today without the posture that you've exhibited based on the vision that we've had for the last several years. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and if not, we can go right to Robin and we can dispatch with this, hopefully.
Are there any questions of Chip at the moment? I don't see anything. Robin, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chip. I appreciate the introduction. And as Chip noted, we do have some updates. There were some financial updates, just the addition of $19,000 total, and I have a few slides to touch on that. There were some narrative changes in the book, and I have a slide to address that. And the budget questions and answers document has been updated since the budget workshop. So questions 19 through 32 are new. I do encourage everybody to read that. We received some really well thought out questions, and staff took the time, and our city attorney's office, to provide some very thorough answers, and it's really worth reading through those. For the financial changes, it is the $4,000 for the discretionary grant program that is located in your city council budget. There was the addition of $15,000 to the Carmel Chamber of Commerce that is located in the marketing and economic development budget for the total of $19,000. The revenue side of the house was reviewed, and it was found that we could make some reasonable increases into the budgeted charges for services of $19,000. So overall, there was a net change of really zero, so no additional use of the fund balance.
And that's an important note, if I may. Again, if we increase expenditures, they have to come from somewhere, right? They either come from savings, or we relook at our revenue projections and we increase those to offset any kind of additional expenditure.
This is the usual slide, the budget at a glance, and so the difference here is the recommended revenues has increased by $19,000 from the budget workshop, and the general fund operating expenditures has been increased by $19,000. So again, overall, the use of fund balance remains static, and of course our FTEs has remained static. Staffing at a glance, this again, we haven't made any changes to staffing, or your council, I should say, did not recommend any changes to staffing. But I did want to note out, again, we received some really good questions. Questions 29 through 31 specifically addressed the new position of Natural Resources Manager. So those questions are there, and again, staff took the time to provide some very thorough answers. Our usual revenue table, really just charges for services has increased by $19,000 from the budget workshop. The expenditure table, again, the other expenditures line is increased by $19,000. The expenditures by function, the $4,000 has been added to the city council budget, and the $15,000 to the marketing budget. We had some really good questions on requesting a little more detail on the budgeted operating expenditures of the Forest and Beach Division of Public Works. So this table and the chart below it have been added to page 49 in the budget book to help provide more detail there. And again, we received some really good questions regarding the operations and budgeted cost for Forest and Beach. And those can be found in questions 24 to 25. Again, staff really provided some nice thorough answers, and it's really worth reading into those. The capital projects, those have not increased, or council did not indicate making any changes there. But we did again receive some really good questions requesting more information about the capital plan, and specifically for Scenic Pathway. So questions 22 and 23 are a good read if you're interested in Scenic Pathway. And then also some questions came through addressing public contract code, paying prevailing wage, and use of volunteer services in our CIPs. And our city attorney's office presented some very thorough answers for those questions. This table is not changed at all. This is the projected fund balance for ending this current fiscal year. This hasn't changed at all. And this is the projected fund balance for fiscal year 22-23, and the changes are in the revenue column, revenue and transfers in, expenditures and transfer out. Those again have both increased by 19,000. Again, with resulting in no change in the use of fund balance. In the budget book on page 24, Councilmember Barron had requested to add in the 16 strategic priorities from your city council. It was a fabulous suggestion. Those are now located on page 24 in the budget book. And basically, it's with your council to vote yes. Or obviously, you are the holders of the purse strings. You can give direction otherwise. So with that, I will pass it back.
All righty. Are there any questions of Robin at this time?
Yes, you're not going to get off quite that easily.
That's all right.
Thank you for all the work, and I know you've put in a lot of work over the years here, so on your retirement, thank you for everything. When do we get the the sort of annual report from CalPERS as to what our unfunded liability does? Like what, every year, the whole series of numbers changes. When does that report come in?
July.
Yeah, usually July or late July, early August. Sometimes they do stretch it out into September.
Before you retire or after you retire?
So for the 22-23, we've received those. We received those last summer. So those are accurate numbers. In the UAL value is accurate in the 22-23 budget. So again, in summer of 2022, staff will be receiving the values for the 23-24 fiscal
So I have a request. We've started putting money into this trust, into the retirement trust, and so we have sort of two sets of liabilities now. One asset and one liability that sort of impact our planning. And I would ask you, when we get those numbers, maybe soon after we get those numbers, in the fall or the late fall sometime this year, if we could have a report that talks about what happened to those numbers, as well as how the 115 trust performed over the course of the past fiscal year. So last year we put $1 million in, presumably that happened in July or whenever it was that we approved that, and I guess we're going to put another $1 million in
Yes, sir.
This year. So I would like to see, and I'd like to sort of increase the visibility of the 115 trust. You and I, Chip and I, have talked about figuring out a way to get that number into the budget book, because it's an important part of the financial health of the city. And maybe we could have a presentation
Sure.
Sometime pretty soon, again, when those numbers come in, so that we can sort of work out how to do that before the next year's budget book
100%
comes
sir.
around.
100%, yep.
And our auditors are actually scheduled to come in about 2 weeks, and I have it on my to-do list. One of the elements is to ask them about that too, what they've seen with their other clientele that have Section 115 trust, how those are.
Yeah, we had we approved, I guess when we set up that trust, we approved sort of an investment policy along with it, some sort of moderately, I think it was like a moderately conservative investment policy. And
Exactly,
so
yep.
I would like to see how that policy has worked, sort of in conjunction with the UAL numbers, sort of at the same time, so we can just think about those things working together.
Okay, yes, and definitely, yes, I will share that with the auditors.
Anything else, Jeff?
Nope.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Karen?
I'd like to ask a question. Chip, could you give us a little bit more information or synopsis about this natural resources person that we're adding?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So it's just the title's a placeholder at this point in time. In fact, Maxine and I were just talking about some options. So the best way to describe what we're proposing here, based on your direction, is to create what I call a super division. I'm sure it'll be a super division, but it'll be a large division within Public Works that focuses on the natural environment, forest, parks, and beach. And heading this division will be this new position. You'll review the job description. Next month, you have to approve it because it's a brand-new position. And then under that, there'll be the environmental compliance manager, which is Anya's current position, and the city forester. And then underneath those positions will be the two positions that you created, I guess, was it November? Or was it last year? Doesn't matter. The analyst and the specialist to help support that function. So again, you're gonna have 5 people that are working on the natural environment, managing that function, and then all the working crews, they'll be dedicated to those elements of the natural environment. So that's the vision. That's what we pitched to you a couple of months ago, and that's what is proposed in the funding scheme here.
And do you see that being part of the implementation of the action and adaptation plan?
I do, and I actually made a note. Anya's talked about the grant writer, climate coordinator. What we need to see if there's capacity within one of those 5 positions to help manage those areas of expertise as well. One of the elements, and Mr. Byrne I think is online, but we created this. The vision is for a volunteer facilitator, someone to work with all of our volunteer groups. The department has as a kind of an in between. Hey, this is what we need done, and then assigning resources to it. And again, I think I told you I recently did an interview with 65 Degrees magazine, and my biggest fear was I'm going to leave a volunteer group out. That was my biggest fear. And I think the interview, well, we'll see if I left someone out, but the interview went very, very well. But through this conversation with the writer, it just struck me that we have such an incredible cadre of volunteers, not just in the village, but in our community at large. And she reminded me of groups in the village that I hadn't even, the people who take your ticket. The mayor was at Sunset Center. Those are volunteers, the docents at Sunset. So anyway, that's the vision. And so yes, ma'am, to answer your question, a long way around, it could be grant writing and implementing the climate action and adaptation plans.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I take it out to the public? All right, I'll open up for public comment. Anybody in the public wishing to speak? Anybody in this room wishing to speak to the budget?
Hello, Amy Herzog, Visit Carmel. Good evening, Mayor, Council, everyone. On behalf of Visit Carmel, I just wanted to be here again personally to thank you for your continued investment or consideration of the investment you have in the budget before you. As I said to you before, we really value your investment into the economic development and the main economic driver of the village and our destination marketing programs. I think even equally as important, if not more, is how valuable it is to us to have your continued partnership and your support and your input into our programs. As has been discussed, we are embarking on a very collaborative destination stewardship communications plan. And I think that input and that partnership is going to continue to be so valuable to us. As I sit through this meeting and listen to the climate change report and some of the other things that have come up, it just strikes me again how interconnected destination marketing and destination stewardship are continuing to be, more and more so every day, really. And I know on behalf of Visit Carmel, we're really inspired to embark on this stewardship communications plan and ensure the health of the destination, not just for the current residents and visitors, but also the future residents and visitors as well. So just again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Is there anybody else wishing to speak?
Mayor Potter, are you out in the Zoom world yet?
No, not yet, Dale. We've got a couple more people in here.
Okay.
Thank
Don't
you.
want to get left out. Thanks.
No problem, don't worry.
Good afternoon. Thomas Hood. I am not speaking as a former member of HRB, but as a board member of the Chamber of Commerce and president of Carmel Heritage Society. And those of us at the Chamber appreciate everything that Visit Carmel has been doing. And I'm here to request that you consider additional funding of $30,500 that will help us run our visitor center. And I think there's something that the Chamber maybe doesn't say much about really on a regular basis. Tourism is one of the three legs of the stool that runs the city, right? You've got the city government, you have tourism, but then you've got all the other businesses, all the other services businesses. The majority of our members are service businesses. They may not be on the front lines in terms of hospitality, but they're providing the accounting, the services, the physical repairs, the construction, the management, all those services that indirectly benefit tourism, but are absolutely essential for operation of our community, being kind of the three-legged stool. The other thing to consider is that the Chamber also looks to the interests of not only the visitors, but the residents. We had a terrific meeting of the minds with CRA recently, talking about continuing dialogue between CRA and the Chamber's side. But we also are the only one that represents the collective of both visitors and businesses in the community, and that includes other peninsula cities, special events sponsorship, CRA visitors, and not to mention, just as an example, during COVID, we all remember the kind of work that Jenny put in as our executive director in 2020. She was the only one that really jumped in, and that's part of our chamber. We need those funds to run our visitor center. We need it to attract and retain good talent, and I hope you consider our request. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in this house?
Good evening, Mayor Potter and council members. Jody Hanson from the Carmel Chamber of Commerce. As Thomas mentioned, we're very grateful for the $15,000 increase that you've already recommended. And at the same time, our ask was for more. And our ask was based on need. Right now, the Chamber's budget is under $500,000. We have a staff of 2 full-time people in the Chamber office and 1.25 full-time people who are doing visitor services. Plus, we have a core of volunteers. Now it's getting close to 20 volunteers. You know, we're able to deliver services to our visitors at a very low cost. You know, we definitely support Visit Carmel and the CVB for all of their efforts to market Carmel outside of this area. It's really important. We work collaboratively with them, and we're not duplicating their services. At this point, you know, we look at the CVB actually closed its visitor center that was operated out of Monterey a few years ago. They were receiving $140,000 or so, I don't know exactly, from the city of Monterey. They had below market rent, and they still couldn't make it work. It was not making money. They were seeing a decline in what they could do, and they closed their doors. And I think we have to realize that this service can't be sustained without some help. We have basically, CVB gets 3% of the TOT, and Visit Carmel gets 120,000 in your budget. We're asking for less than both of those organizations, and I think we do a service that they're not doing. Council members, we really ask you to reconsider, this recommended increase. And we urge you to make a motion to increase the Chamber's allocation. We, again, really appreciate all the support you've given us, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight?
Good evening, Mayor Potter, council members, and the city administrator. I first want to thank you all for your service to our community. Greatly appreciated. My name is Sigel Lomas, and I'm with a local family-owned real estate company. I'm the brokerage manager. Our office is just around the corner, and I'm also the board chair for the Carmel Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to speak to you tonight about what we've done in the past. You know what we've done. You've seen it in our letter. You've heard us speak of it. You're a part of this community. You know who we are, and you know how we care and how we are here to support and help our businesses grow. During the pandemic, our membership did decrease by 10%. We are daily receiving calls with people interested in what the Chamber has to offer, what we have to offer, and to help their businesses succeed. We have strong community leaders that are currently board members, that are enthusiastic, that love our community, that care about our community, and care about the successes of our businesses and about our chamber. I am thrilled and I am energized. I'm excited about the future of our chamber and what we're going to do. Our events are back on course. The sponsorships are coming in. People care, they believe, and they want what we have to offer in our partnership. We have determined that the cost to operate the visitor center, which is manned mostly by volunteers, cost us $121,000. We're asking for half of that, just to help us support the services that we provide to direct people to the businesses in our community. Like I said, I want to say thank you to Chip for your service to our CEO, President, Search Committee for the Chamber. That time was invaluable. We truly honored you being a part of that and your expertise. And like I said, I thank you all very much. I respectfully request that you reconsider, and we appreciate, the Chamber appreciates the $15,000 increase, but I would like to respectfully request that you increase it to the ask of the $60,500, an additional $30,000 and $500. If it cannot be considered, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Anybody else wishing to speak in here tonight? Come on, let's go. You're the last member of the public.
Is that me? Good evening, Council, Mayor. Thank you for your time. My name is Rob O'Keefe. I am the President and CEO of the Monterey County Convention and Visitors Bureau. I'll just make a quick correction, but I think it'll further her point that Jody made. With our visitor center, we didn't get $140,000 a year. We paid $137,000 a year to operate it to the city of Monterey, precisely because we promoted Carmel, Marina, Seaside, and all the other destinations. And I can't argue with her point about the complexities that come with operating a visitor center. But I wanted to thank you for your consideration. tonight, and I spoke to you a few weeks ago about a commitment. I wanted to follow up with some details on that. You're making an investment. The 3% investment is the same as the other smaller cities pay. It's not as much as the county or the city of Monterey. And what comes with that instead of a 30-page PowerPoint, I wanted to reiterate what I said before about commitment. You're not just investing in tourism, you're investing in responsible tourism. You're not just investing to try to attract visitors, you're trying to attract respectful visitors. And we have ways to try to increase the respect and the behavior by who we target. For example, people who fly here and don't drive, fewer cars on the road. And educating. We spend a considerable amount of our budget focused on getting to people before they get here. Not just saying, hey, we'd like you to come visit. We're saying, this is how you need to behave when you're here. And your investment is not just about Carmel-by-the-Sea. Your investment is in a regional effort. We're part of that, part of the county and beyond, where each part needs to work seamlessly and collaboratively. We've seen that especially during COVID. And we're the platform for doing that, for that unity that exists throughout the county. But it's more than that. Monterey County is part of a larger statewide collective. And we have a lot to gain from that. Back in 2015, we started a program called Sustainable Moments. It was one of the first formal programs focused on sustainable, responsible travel. Tomorrow morning, I'm participating in a listening study with Visit California that they're doing around the state. They asked us to be a part of it because we were one of the first, the pioneers in this space. The study is focused on resident sentiment and engagement. You're part of that. Your investment makes you part of that. We have a bigger seat at the table than most for the size of the county that we have, but it's because we were out there ahead of it. So that translates to you to be a part of this. And it's all in an effort to make sure that what we do as an organization, all of us, the Chamber, Visitor Center, Visit Carmel, are all part of improving how we deliver tourism responsibly and respectfully. So again, there's a lot more to what we do. And again, I'd be happy to come back anytime and talk in a lot more detail about the specifics. But behind the specifics are the commitment of myself and my board to ensure that we do what we do responsibly and sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else in this building who would like to speak before I take it out to Zoom world? I don't see anybody. Dale Byrne, you were out there.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Potter. So having the last 2 years, I think I may have been the only person that attended the in-person meeting, the first one, and I've attended all the other ones both years. And each year I learn a little bit more about how this works, and it's clearly a fairly complicated process. And I really appreciate the fact that we can ask a lot of questions, we get the answers back, and it was really well written. I still have some questions and concerns. Karen asked a question about the natural resources manager, and I guess I'm still learning how this works. You've got a position that's funded with some salary levels, but we don't know what the job description is yet. So I'm just going to trust that the process works and the council will ask the right questions and figure out how that works. Because I see there's a lot of managers and very few people currently working in those departments. So I would like to make sure that the money that's spent is spent on things that actually get things done. But I'm trusting that that's going to work out because you guys seem to know what you're doing. So the other thing is the Vista Lobos questions that I put in there. It's sort of the same thing. I sat through all the meetings and I don't remember Vista Lobos as a subject ever coming up in terms of repurposing that facilities. And maybe I just don't understand what's going on, but the answer that I got wasn't particularly clear. I just hope that there is some kind of discussion because as I said last time, that's a really valuable piece of property, and that building is used for meetings that I personally attend with CERT and other things. So I'm just going to have to trust because this is going to happen. I'm just going to have to trust that the council knows things that I don't know and the details and all that because I just want to make sure that it's done properly, and I'm sure that it is. So again, thank you very much for letting us all attend these sessions. And I hope that I learned some things this year that I can do a better job of helping you guys next year when you do the next budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you for your participation. Shirley Moon, I'm guessing. Shirley, your hand is up. There you go.
Hi. My name is Shirley Moon, and I'm here to present some numbers for your consideration and that impact the future of the scenic pathway. And I promise you I'll be very brief. 23 is the number of months the restoration of the pathway has been taking place. 87 is the number of 4 or 5 hour work sessions on the pathway with donor-funded gardeners and many volunteers. 644 is the number of days that someone has walked the pathway picking up trash. 500 is the number of dollars we pay our gardeners per week from private donations. 0 is the number that represents the chance that the pathway's current condition could be sustained under the proposed budget without volunteers and donations. 5, the number of people on this council who have the power to make a different commitment and secure a different outcome. A commitment to financially support the Carmel-by-the-Sea part of Carmel's name by specifically setting aside funds to be used exclusively to preserve, maintain, and improve the pathway. 1+1 represents the uniqueness of our public-private partnership. Together, we need to structure dedicated financial support for the scenic pathway so that its current condition is sustained and only improves with each additional year of this partnership. Thank you very much for this consideration.
Thank you, Shirley. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Yashin, what do you think?
I don't see any other raised hands, Mayor.
All right, well, unless there's anybody else out there, I'll bring it back to council for discussion, direction. Council members? Karen?
Yes, I wonder if you could put up page 49 again. Is that possible? Yes. Okay. Yes. On page 49, the graph is really very, very educational, very telling. Oops, it disappeared there. Okay. And that great big piece of the pie, the 60%, the tree-related services, that mostly, I think, involves removal, pruning, and so on of trees. We have a lot of problems in our forests these days with losing lots of pines and so on, and those are a lot of contract services. If you look at the little tiny blue part, which is, I think, about 5% over there, that's new trees and plants. And as a person who's very, very passionate about our natural resources in this town, I would like, during the mid-year budget tune-up, to see if we could augment some of that money in the new trees and plants, because if we're taking down the majority of our forests, we certainly have to invest in having more trees for the future, and not just for the beauty that they bring, but we heard in the climate change thing that we need canopy cover as temperatures increase. So this will be vitally important. Also, there is a section somewhere, I don't know whether I can point it out right now, but where $25,000 was put in for beautification. And I think $25,000, frankly, is a drop in the bucket when you compare that to other amounts of money we're putting out. And beauty is one of the things that brings our visitors here and enchants them when they are here. It's different. We have trees, we have the shoreline, we have parks, we have canyons, we have such a variety of experiences for them that every dollar we put into our natural resources pays us back. And so I believe that that's important, and I'd like to see at the mid-year tune-up, more attention paid to that. But tonight, I'd really like to ask for $2,000 a month additional added to the budget tonight to support what Carmel Cares is doing on the scenic pathway. They are spending $2,000 a month on keeping the ocean visible by pruning, trimming. Every weed has been removed. I saw before and after pictures this week that I revisited, and the pathway had really fallen into an absolutely embarrassing lack of attention. There were foxtails everywhere, every kind of weed you can imagine, overgrown shrubbery, so you couldn't even, I'm a short person, I couldn't even see the beach in some places as I walked along the pathway. I think that Carmel Cares has done so much to build community and to refresh that pathway as much as possible without major infrastructure investment at this point. And I think in order to keep the volunteers enthused and working as they do, that this would be a small gesture to go towards maintenance of the pathway that we could do immediately. Additionally, for mid-year tune-up, I would like to see a lot more money in the fire fuel abatement throughout the village. I think that part of that wildfire risk assessment and management should include a line item budget for that each year. Friends of Mission Trail have done the majority of removal of invasives over the last 2 years, and they work in partnership with Public Works, which is great, but that's all donor money coming in through that volunteer group as well. So when we have these incredible volunteers throughout our community, I think every penny that we spend to show them that we are supporting their efforts is just vitally important. So I hope the rest of the council will go along with my ask to increase that budget for Scenic Pathway by $24,000.
Okay, why don't we then go to other council members' concerns, and we'll get to Chip as a real. Bobby?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Karen. That was, I agree. It's going to be tough, I think, tonight, Chip, because we're all going to come at you probably with a little bit of ask. And I want to talk a little bit about the chamber and what they've asked for. I know that we've come up with the $15,000 number, but I think that, in my opinion, might be a little bit light for what this group does, what this group of volunteers does, and what they have to pay for. And I know a lot of times it gets confusing what promotion and advertising and marketing and all these things are, because they all seem to get lumped into this is how much we're giving them. But they're very different. And if you'll let me indulge me, I'm going to read you a little quip. If the circus is coming to town and you paint a sign saying circus coming to the fairgrounds Saturday, that's advertising. If you put the sign on the back of an elephant and walk it into town, that's promotion. If the elephant walks through the mayor's flower bed, that's publicity. And if you get the mayor to laugh about it, that's public relations. And I think what the chamber is public relations. I think we do our best to get people into town, and we try to get the overnight guests. And between the HID, the RID, the CVB, we're doing that. We're bringing these guests into town for long periods of time, trying to educate them on sustainability and not driving a car, and trying to advertise to fly in markets where they'll stay longer, where they may come without a car. But there's a public relations aspect. And I know that when that chamber was on San Carlos, it was swamped all the time. I think it is the same in the plaza. And now the volunteers there are doing much more than just sales. They're not doing any sales, actually. What they're doing is educating people on our town. They're explaining where Point Lobos is. They're telling them about the rules on the beach. So they do much more than they don't do any marketing, actually. They do much more than that in a different way, and I think there's public relations, and I think that we need to focus on public relations and educating our tourists, and these people are there to do it. So my pitch would be to somehow find some extra money to get over to that chamber for the public relations aspect of our community.
Carrie?
Thank you. So I think the staff has put together a really solid budget. I think that, we tried to address all these things in the budget. And to Bobby's point, it's not only public relations for the chamber, it's really economic development, because they support the businesses. And the way they supported the businesses during COVID was extremely helpful. And most cities have an economic development person. I've been pitching for that for our city, in which for a while, but we don't seem to have that as a priority. So somebody else has to do that, and that's really the chamber. And, they are helping support the businesses. And Visit Carmel does the marketing, and MCCVB does the marketing because they know how to market best. But the chamber is really economic development. And they're the ones that are talking to the businesses and helping them survive in this economy, in this market differently. And of course, COVID has changed a lot of that. And so businesses have to realize how it's changed and what's going to go on in the future. So, I would support 30,000 more for the chamber. And I do also appreciate Karen's ask, because we need to be good partners. And I think that's what we're showing with Carmel Cares. So, 30,000 plus 24 is about $54,000. So I'm hoping that Chip can find that. So that's what I'm.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. Jeff?
Thank you. I didn't unfortunately come with a list of pet projects to add money to the budget at the last minute. And while I support the $24,000 and the $30,000, I'm okay with that. I don't think it's that much money. I wish we had done this during the budget workshop. We had a workshop where, we take requests and we sort of evaluate them. And in fact, with the chamber, we did in fact do exactly that at the budget workshop. And this feels a little bit like one of those planning commission hearings where every time the applicant comes back and every time they get half of what they want. And so they start with, they ask for some amount and they get it, and then the next month comes around and they ask for more, and the planning commission moves the house a little bit more. And so I'm a little bit frustrated with the process here, since we had this workshop last month. $24,000 and $30,000 is, but I'm fine with the $24,000 and $30,000. I do, and while I do, to Karen's point, and especially to Shirley's point about volunteers, I think we have an unfortunate habit. I do think that we have an unfortunate habit in this city of sort of punishing volunteers by withdrawing city support from the projects that the volunteers work on. And we need to, as a council or as a community, figure out how to reward the people for doing this work that somehow, that's important to them, yes, and maybe selective for their own preferences, yes, but they're contributing to the community. And I think we should be aware of that and cognizant of that, and maybe try to do a better job of supporting those efforts in the future, not just Carmel Cares, but the other volunteer groups around as well. Thank you.
Good points by all, I agree. I think, especially when you look at the chamber, these are tough times, and so it wouldn't be surprising to me if all the membership wasn't shrinking a little bit due to the fact that businesses can't make the investment to go ahead and self-promote. So I'm supportive of what's before us. Chip, I'd look to you to say, what do you think? Where can you find the money?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll certainly, we'll find the money if that's your direction. 100%. And then to Councilmember Ferlito's requests at mid-year, we'll add those to a sticky note. Maxine will, and we'll bring them back, and we'll give you an update on how we're doing, obviously. So thank you.
How
for
about a
that.
mid-year update from the chamber, too, on how they're doing?
You know, I think that's a great idea. The note that I had made when Ms. Herzog was speaking is, you know, you should receive a presentation on the Destination Stewardship Program. You can see what the volunteer group subcommittee puts together, and we should ask Mr. O'Keefe back as well. So I think that's a reasonable ask. What are you doing with the funding? And of course, you know, we do receive an annual report for both those groups, and we should expect the same of the chamber, Mr. Mayor.
Good. All righty, any other discussion? All right, we have direction. We want to make a motion then to drop the fiscal budget for 2020, 22, 2023 with the amendments suggested, which is $2,000 a month for a total of $24,000 for Carmel Cares and $30,000 allocation to the chamber, is my understanding.
And my only comment, Mr. Mayor, real quickly, if that's a motion, maybe we should get a second first.
I'll
We have a
second.
second for discussion.
I'm unclear. What's the motion is to redraw the budget and come back next Tuesday and
No, we're amending this tonight to add $24,000 to the operating budget, contractual services for public works for scenic road pathway maintenance, and adding $30,000 to economic development for the Chamber of Commerce for a total of $60,500. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
24,000, yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's 24,000, isn't it?
They ask us for $60,500.
Oh, okay, total. Okay.
Total.
I'm
So
sorry.
we'd be adding $30,500.
Yeah.
And where's that money gonna come from?
I don't know yet. What we'll do is we'll
So
look.
that's my,
we'll-
that's,
Yeah.
We'll look at our revenue numbers, Mr. Barron, so we'll look at the big two, obviously the sales tax and the TOT, and see if there is additional funding in those areas.
and so
Or ambulance transport fees, or any of the revenue sources.
and we're gonna give you authority to sort of monkey around with the revenue numbers.
Yeah, I
without us.
wouldn't be that. I
The
wouldn't be
CPA,
that.
the CPA talk right there.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry I'm being,
No,
with
no.
respect, I'm sorry I'm being a stick in the mud here, but.
Jeff, I understand what you want. You want to
Yeah,
know what
I would,
line
I
item
would
you're
like
going
to
to take
see
it out
the
of
final
now.
budget at a meeting before we sort of dispense with this item. That's my objection. Like, I don't object to these things, but I would like to know where these numbers are gonna come from. And maybe we could wait for 10 minutes right now and you could tell me, and I'd be more satisfied. Take just
Do
a
a
short
quick bio break.
and just take a short
Robin-
break
Robin
and
may have an
have
answer,
this
though.
sort of ironed out.
Robin, do you have a
actually
special
have
line
an idea
item?
right now. The city had just recently received an estimate pending the approval of the increase in the waste
Waste
fees.
management fee,
Yes, and so the franchise fees would
Right.
increase accordingly. So I will make an adjustment. I feel with your adoption earlier, it
To the
is
franchise fee
reasonable-
number.
Right, to the garbage franchise fees. We could adjust by the
See,
equivalent amount.
this is what we're gonna miss when she thinks well on her feet. Yeah. So-
All right,
so,
I'm
yeah.
gonna check on this to make sure that this
So we
is.
will apply the revenue, let me just answer that question. We will apply the revenue increase from their franchise
We did earlier.
fees increase, then Ms. Scatini to offset these additional expenditures.
So just to be clear, instead of 15,000 to the chamber, we're doing 30,500 plus 15, so 45,500.
No.
We
No.
had 15 booked. They're asking for an additional 30,500 for a total of
Okay.
60,500, which is the way I thought I heard the ask and the discussion, council member. And then
Okay.
$24,000 for the fiscal year for the beach pathway maintenance, landscape maintenance, for a total of $54,500.
Okay, 54.
In
All right, that's
addition-
what I'm,
In addition to what's in the book now.
okay. Thank you for the clarification.
All right, we have a motion for a second. We have any other discussion? I don't see anything. Yashin, do you want to call the question?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Barron.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Yes.
Councilmember Tice,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards,
Yes.
and Mayor Potter.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous.
Robin, that said, I do want to personally thank you for your efforts. You've been amazing. I understand you're going to stick around for a couple of days extra to indoctrinate the new fiscal manager.
Yes, I'll be here through the end of the month. I'm
That'd be
working through
great.
June 30th.
I think Bobby and I offered to take you out to lunch. That offer still stands, with no agenda
Thank you.
whatsoever, just a simple thank you luncheon.
Be careful.
Thank you.
Careful.
Well, I want to thank, it's been a pleasure and an honor to serve your council. I would like to also thank the city administrator and assistant city administrator for, years back, said yes to bringing me on. And I also really want to thank all of my coworkers. And I don't want to name names because don't want to accidentally leave anybody out. But it is an amazing workforce here in Carmel-by-the-Sea. So every single coworker in every single department, I really appreciate them and look forward to getting to still see them as a resident. And then as remaining a resident, really knowing that this city is in fabulous hands at all levels, at leadership levels, at all the workforce levels, our, emergency response workforce, public works, libraries, everything. And all those, especially behind the scenes that we don't get to see. And then also our business partners too. I've had a really great time working with all the personnel from our business partners. So thank you, everybody. When it's, like I said,
Well
but I'm
said.
still here.
There's no I in team, but if there was a you, it'd be you. Thank you. Well done, well done.
Thank you, Mayor.
All righty.
I don't know, there's that thing called retired annuitant.
I want to say thank you, Rob. I hope to see you at a ribbon cutting.
Yes.
She could apply for the planning commission next year as well.
Yeah.
All righty, well, that does conclude our business for today. Are there any other future agenda items we'd like to add tonight? I'm hoping not.
I just want to reiterate that smoking in the downtown and some of the smoking issues should come up at some time. I think we have very interested business people and interested volunteers in
Right.
looking at that at some point.
That noted, at some point we will, I agree. All righty, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for your attention and interest and volunteerism.
Thank you.
Very well done, thank you all.
Thank you.
Amazing. Nicely done.
Yeah, but he didn't talk to me.